Well, welcome to this dialogue with Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, also a 2004 Ouachita graduate. We have some people joining us by live stream, and I want to welcome you. We're in the Frank Hickenbotham School of Business. 10 a.m. is one of the busiest times on campus, Governor. A lot of classes going on here, but we have 4 classes that have made this their class session today from the Departments of Business, Communications, Political Science, and History. And I want to say thank you to Drs. Horton, Root, Reed, and Hauser, and students for participating. We also have students representing the Ouachita Student Foundation, the Student Senate, and the Social Club, the Women of EEE. As a Ouachita student, Governor Sanders was president of the Student Senate and a member of EEE. And then we have colleagues from Administrative Council, Dean's Council, faculty, staff from across campus. And before we begin, I want to say thanks to Dr. Keldon Henley, colleagues across campus, your staff for helping organize today. This class period ends at 10:50 today. And of course, we want students to be on time to the next class, Governor. And you have a busy schedule, and we're all kind of watching the weather for our campus, but if you're the governor of the state of Arkansas today, you're also watching the weather for the state, so we're mindful of that as well. So the students from these courses submitted 30 questions. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of them, but there was a lot of overlap, and so I'm going to draw from them, and because class has to be on time, Governor, we're just going to jump right in if that's okay.
Yes, sir. This may actually be the first time I've ever been on time for class at Ouachita, so I'm pretty excited.
Well,
as I'm looking out, I see a few of my former professors, which would probably validate that. I would say usually coming in just a couple minutes late, but...
Well, we can't go back and change your file at this point in time. So you have complete amnesty at this point in time. So, well, welcome back, Governor Sanders, to Ouachita. What memories came back as you just drove on campus? You know, what memories maybe came rushing back as you stepped back onto campus today?
Well, first I want to say what an honor it is to be back on campus, and thank you, Dr. Sells, for inviting me, and certainly great to see Keldon Henley and again several of my professors. I would like to say I'm pretty sure every professor that I have that's in the room, I got an A in their class. And so Dr. Reed is giving me a quizzical look like he's not 100% positive of that, but we can double check the record. But it's great to be back on campus, and this is such a special place for me, not just as a student, but this is also where my dad graduated from. I had an older brother and cousins, a couple of aunts, so this is a very special place for my entire family. But it was a big part of who I am and the path that I ultimately ended up on. So much of it started for me here at Ouachita, and I have hundreds of thousands of different memories, some of which I can actually share, many of which I was a college student, so I won't. And I'm very proud of my life in public service and would like to continue to have it. So I was told as we were walking in that the statute of limitations had run out on some of the run-ins I had with Dean Henley, who was the head of the students when I was here at Ouachita. And so, but I think one of the most remarkable things about this place and this campus that is so different and unique and special, really than anywhere I've ever been, are the people. And that's what really makes Ouachita stand out. And so all of the memories, the good, the bad, the ugly, are all tied back to the amazing relationships that I've developed here on this campus. Whether it's my very best friends who, even to this day, 20 years post-graduation, are still the people that I'm closest to in life. One of my best friends and roommates from college became my sister-in-law, and one of my very close friends from my time here at Ouachita rode down with me today, just so we could catch up along the way. I think one of the best things about this place is that people, obviously you're coming here for the academic experience, but it's also a very spiritual place. And you may come here with a faith that you have grown up in, something that you have always known, or it could be something that's totally new to you. But for me, this was a place where I really found it myself, and found a hunger and a desire and a dependency a hard thing to say because I grew up with a dad as a pastor. Before he was a governor, I spent a lot of time in church, and so it wasn't that my faith was new, but to claim it as my own and to really understand why I had it, why I needed it, really happened to me while I was a student at Ouachita. And that was in large part through the relationships I had with my friends, but also the faculty and the staff here. They challenged me and they pushed me to be the very best that I could. And I don't think I would have gotten the experience. And frankly, I certainly wouldn't be where I am now if I had not been a student here and attended Ouachita and at one point graduated from here. So incredibly special place, and I'm honored to get to be back on campus today.
Well, maybe building on that, another question was, what were some of the biggest lessons, or a lesson or two, either from inside or outside the classroom, that now 20 years later you say, this has really helped me? Maybe be a little bit more specific. It builds upon the question we just asked you.
Sure. So probably one of my more vivid classroom memories, when I was a freshman, I thought I was the smartest person on campus, and came in thinking I knew a lot more than I did. And I was signed up for a more junior or senior level communications class with a professor named Bill Downs. And none of you will have had the opportunity to take a class with Bill Downs, but he's still probably one of the hardest, most difficult people that I've ever encountered, but also one of the most amazing humans that I've ever known. And I came into Dr. Downs' class thinking that I was going to teach him a few things. I got my arrogance chipped away very quickly, but I walked into his classroom and my advisor told me, hey, did you know that this is a higher level communications class? You should probably drop this and take something else. And I told him, no, I've got it, don't worry about it. So the very first big assignment we had was about a 25 page paper. And I did not spend quite the amount of time that I should have, but I still thought it was a work of art. And turned it in and went off on my way, waiting for Dr. Downs to praise me in front of the entire class after he had the chance to read this amazing paper that I had written. And the following class period, he calls me in front of everybody and says, can you stay after? I'm like, gosh, he was so impressed that he wants to talk to me after class about what a great paper it was. Instead, I went up and he told me that it was one of the worst things he'd ever read, and he couldn't believe I had turned it in, and that I should essentially be ashamed of myself for that work. And he said, but I know you're capable of doing better. And he said, I never do this, but I'm going to give you a second chance because I know you have the ability to do something better than what you did. And he gave it back. And after that, I spent hours and hours and hours researching and pouring in. And I turned that paper back in, and I got an A, but only because I had a professor who saw something in me and pushed me to go beyond even what I knew and thought I was capable of. And if he hadn't done that, one, I think I could have gone through and made a lot more mistakes for the next 4 years, but it also humbled me in a way that I needed, but pushed me to always do my very best and not settle for anything less than that. And if I hadn't had a professor like Dr. Downs to see that in me and challenge me, I really don't think I would have had the experience that I did, and certainly don't think I would have had quite as productive of an academic time period over the next 4 years.
Well, maybe that's an encouragement to students as well, and I certainly hear alumni share those kind of stories. Let's shift gears. Here's with 2 or 3 questions around this subject. What are you doing to make higher education more affordable and accessible in Arkansas?
Sure. So education has been the biggest priority that I've had since coming in as governor. I've made no secret that if I have one legacy in terms of policy accomplishments when I'm finished, what I hope is that people will look back and say that I was the education governor. We spent a lot of time in the first and early months of me taking office on K through 12 education. You have to have a good foundation if we want to see people be successful in higher ed. So we spent more than 2 years, even before I got elected, working on crafting, researching a piece of legislation called Arkansas Learns, which really transformed the way that we look at education in the K-12 space here in Arkansas. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to build on the success that we'd had through that. Ken Warden, who's here today, is part of my team and helps run the Division of Higher Education for the state. So if you have any problems or you think something's not going right, it's his fault. If there's anything you like, I did that.
Ken, where are you, Ken? Right, okay, right. Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we worked really hard this session to build, like I said, on that success and worked on legislation called Arkansas Access, which the goal and the concept is to open up a lot more pathways. Obviously, each one of you are sitting here at a great university. We want every student in the state to have access and opportunity. And that's going to look different for everybody. It may not be a 4-year university like Ouachita. It could be a trade or a vocational or a certification right out of high school. Everybody's educational journey is going to look a little different. I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, and even at my own house, I can already tell that each one of my kids is going to need and have a very different path. And so we want to make sure that every single student has the opportunity to find success, and we want them to do that here in our state. So opening up a lot more pathways has been the biggest goal of Access, making that more affordable, providing more scholarships, helping students graduate with more certification, and pushing them again to be their best. So often I feel like instead of raising the bar and helping people meet those expectations, we lower it so that everybody wins. That's not a success story. If we're lowering the bar and not pushing people to be their very best and pushing them to excel, to me that's not a win. That's a watered down victory, and that's not what we want for our students. And so that is the goal, and what we really expect will be the result of Arkansas Access here in the state.
And last year you did the Arkansas Challenge Plus, and so we have some students here who got more from Arkansas their first year because of the Arkansas Challenge Plus, that instead of $1,000 they got more than that. And then in this legislation it will help incoming freshmen in the future. That grant goes up from $1,000 to $2,000 a year. And then we've seen the state invest in our nursing program and our cybersecurity program, so we're grateful for that. Maybe extending that a little bit, another question was, what's an area where you think the state can lead the country by example in legislation? I don't know if you want to talk about cell phones or not, or there are other areas that you've championed, but I know that's been one of them, certainly for K through 12, but not for college.
Not for college, so okay. I feel a little more comfortable. And my 7th grade daughter is not sitting on the front row rolling her eyes at me, which is usually the case. Anytime I talk about the cell phone policy, I think there's a lot of places Arkansas has the ability to lead. In fact, the reason I ran for governor is because, frankly, I was frustrated with seeing Arkansas at the bottom in so many places, because I feel confident and know that Arkansas has the ability to lead nationally. And I didn't want to settle for being at the bottom. And I think education is certainly one of the places where we're leading, we're changing things. Our business environment, there are a lot of pieces like that. But on the cell phone policy, one of the things that we have seen taking place, not just in our country, but frankly across the globe, is a massive increase in our anxiety, depression, suicide rates, particularly among young people, particularly among our teens. A lot of that driven by completely unfettered access to social media. It's one of the things that I think, frankly, we have failed an entire generation on, is that we put phones and total open access in their hands without any guardrails, without any understanding of what we were really doing. Now we're seeing the impacts of that mistake, and we have the opportunity to course correct. It will be a very difficult challenge because people love their phones. And it's not that I think that they're bad or that social media is a terrible thing. I think it can be a great resource when used properly and when it is not the only access you have to the outside world. But we have created an entire generation that is almost completely dependent on technology, where we're losing a lot of the person-to-person communication skills, and where we're further in all of the ways of trying to connect people more, we're further isolating more and more people by having them sit on a device at all times. So this past session, we actually pushed forward legislation that will ban cell phones bell to bell, K through 12. So that doesn't impact you, which is why I feel really comfortable talking about it, because you've all graduated from high school. But I do think it has been not just a decline on our mental health, but we've seen a huge decline in student productivity because of the distraction of cell phones. I've now had the opportunity, after we implemented this program in several schools over the course of the last year, we've been tracking the data and the research and seen tremendous results, a 51% reduction in violent and physical aggression at schools that have gone phone-free. We've seen a massive increase in productivity in test scores in schools that have gone phone-free, and a lot less behavioral and drug problems in schools that have gone phone-free. The vast majority, in fact, have seen significant changes. So these are the types of things I think Arkansas is leading on. We've seen other states start to follow, and something I'm very proud of. Not just as a governor, but certainly as a parent, because I know this will have a big impact on an entire generation of students and young people, and I think it's something where we'll see the impact for many years to come.
I think it's interesting that this is not a red or blue state initiative, that you're seeing states across, and Arkansas has been a leader. Since you referenced your children, you and First Gentleman Brian Sanders are the parents of 3 young children. Several questions around what's it like to be a mom and a governor, and how do you handle juggling all those responsibilities?
Well, sometimes not very well, but I have found in the course of the last several years in having jobs that are very demanding and require a lot of my time that I'm never going to win when it comes to quantity. I know that I will not be the mom that goes to the most school events, the most class parties. I will likely never be elected PTA president. And so if I'm not going to win on the quantity game, I have to really win on the quality side. And so the biggest thing I do is try to be very intentional about my time with my family. My office likes to joke that they can tell that my kids are still awake, and that there is a clear line when the Sanders kids have gone to bed, because I'll go dark for a brief period of time in the evenings, from about 7 to 8:30. I'm not usually responding to a lot of text and email, and then all of a sudden there will be rapid fire responses coming back in because I've got my kids to bed and have a chance to start to work again. And so I've really tried to lean into the quality time, and so when I'm with them, putting my phone aside and making things really intentional. My dad was very good at this. He served as our state's governor for almost 11 years, and one of the things that I cherish, and now my husband is actually doing with our kids every Wednesday morning until I graduated from high school, I went to breakfast with my dad. And so this was like dedicated, protected time that was one-on-one, and it was something I really looked forward to, and so did he. And now I try to find those moments where I can have one-on-one time with my kids. They each like to do different things, and so my boys are really into sports. That doesn't always look as pretty as I would like it to, that one-on-one time. Used to, I could beat them in one-on-one basketball, and now my 11-year-old is smoking me on a regular basis. And so that's also a very humbling moment. But things like that allow me to spend time with them doing stuff they really love is important. And one of the things we try to really put into practice at our house.
Your dad likes Waffle House. The Waffle House is a place we like to go here. Are you a Waffle House fan or not?
I'm a huge Waffle House fan, and I think any college student should love Waffle House because they're open 24 hours and pretty cheap and pretty consistent. I won't speak to any health code violations that they may or may not have. We probably don't want to know about that. There used to also be right off of the exit. There was the 24-hour truck stop. And so I don't think that's still, is that 24 hours now? There was like a diner that had great pancakes in the back that you could go to at 2 or 3 in the morning. I wasn't there at that time, but I had friends that after were going there at those hours. I was obviously studying for Dr. Reed's class, so I would not have been able to be up that
Or Dr. Brennan's class, or
Yeah,
editing
Dr. Brennan's class, yes.
editing a paper from Dr. Downs or something like that.
Yeah,
Probably so.
exactly.
Yeah.
Huge Waffle House fan.
That question was not posed by students, but I was thought that it might
That
be.
was a personal question.
It was. There were questions around Christian faith, and so you talked how that was important to you as a student. How's it influenced you? You're a governor. You're someone with a national profile. We talk about loving God and loving learning, integrating faith with life and learning. How do you go about doing that as governor, as a parent, juggling all in the public eye all the time? What's that look like?
Well, like I think everybody else whose faith is really authentic, it's hard. It's a challenge, but it is also the most important thing that I have in my life. And frankly, in 2.5 years at the White House is probably and hopefully the hardest, most difficult job I will ever have. Very different than the one I have now, both with their own set of challenges, but without it, I certainly wouldn't have survived that time period. You are under intense pressure, intense criticism, and if you're looking to the world to validate you and to define you, you will always be disappointed. And so knowing that I had a creator and a God who had given my life meaning and purpose is frankly what empowered me to do the job that I did, because I wasn't looking for, in that moment, the press briefing room or anybody else to give my life meaning. I had that from a much bigger place. And so even on the worst days, you could get through it. And there were some pretty tough days. And now as governor, I'm not looking for even the voters to validate me. I certainly want them to support me. And I hope that I do a good job with the responsibility that I've been given, that they've empowered and given me the privilege to carry out. But that's not the validation that I need to know whether or not I've been successful. I know that I have lived a life that is worth living if I have a God at the end that says, well done, good and faithful servant. And that is what you're looking for. That doesn't always come easy. It is a grind, it is a challenge, and many days I miss the mark. But because it's authentic, you're constantly searching, you're constantly striving, and the entire goal and real purpose of it is that you can't do it on your own. And for somebody like me, I like to be able to do things myself. I don't like to be dependent necessarily on other people or other things. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges and struggles that I have, but also one of the greatest gifts that God has given us is to know that you don't have to. And so it is really such a core part, not just of who I am, but of frankly how I get through each day. I will never forget and distinctly remember probably some of the most difficult professional days that I have had, and I'm very, very hopeful that we don't have one later today and tomorrow, is in dealing with disaster. We have had some pretty intense natural disasters here in our state over the course of the last 2.5 years since taking office. Just in the first few months of being governor, our state was hit by really bad tornadoes. Arkadelphia is no stranger to tornadoes. We experienced a couple while I was a student here that were pretty intense and brought about mass destruction. But seeing people in their most vulnerable moment and knowing that you can share your faith and give them a little bit of hope, even in those darkest days, has made a big difference, not just in how I govern, but how I serve. And without that, I think it would be infinitely harder to do the job that I do every day. So not just grateful, but frankly, wholly dependent on my ability to continue to search and strive for my faith.
I'm going to look at my phone just to see what time it is, okay?
He's probably posting a tweet right now, so you guys guys let me know.
Well, and I know enough about you that you've stayed connected with the church and people connected with the church that you and your husband have. There were questions. You're the first woman governor in the history of Arkansas, and there were 2 or 3 questions about what advice do you have for women as they think about their future, profession, marriage, family, juggling all that. Any insight or advice 20 years later?
I'll give the best advice I can. Like I said, every day is a learning experience, and I am proud of the fact that I'm the first woman to serve as our state's governor. But I didn't run because I wanted to be the first woman to serve, but because I wanted Arkansas to be first. And I don't want people to support me and vote for me because I'm a woman, but because they think I'm the best that there is. And I think that is a good message for women. Don't use that as a crutch, use it as an empowerment, but don't let that be the thing and the only thing that really defines you. I think too, one of the biggest challenges certainly that most women have, particularly moms, which doesn't speak to this group as much, but we try to do everything on our own. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and know that God created you to have a partner in life and in what you're doing, and so don't be afraid to lean on other people. I am so grateful that I have an amazing support system in my husband and my family and my friends, and without that, the challenges in front of me would be infinitely more difficult. And so not feeling the need to take everything on my own shoulders, and I think you can do that as a student. Don't be afraid, look around where you are. There are amazing people all across the Ouachita campus, whether it's your friends or your professors, people that want to encourage you, they want to build you up, let them. Don't be afraid to lean on the people around you that God purposely put in your life for that reason.
Thank you. There were several questions about economic development. I noted last week that Arkansas led the country in gross domestic product in the fourth quarter, a higher rate of growth in this state in the fourth quarter than any state in the country. What are you doing? What's happening in Arkansas that's helping us develop that way? And there are people from rural areas ask how Northwest Arkansas is booming, other parts aren't. So talk a little bit about what you're doing. And we have an economics class that is in here as well. What are you doing to champion Arkansas?
Really proud of the numbers and the way our state is succeeding right now, and frankly leading on the national stage. This is our second quarter in a row to be number 1 in economic growth, and that is a really big deal for a small state like Arkansas. I think the things that we're focusing on and that our priority list, we're not trying to be all things to all people, but we've identified where do we have the right to win, where can Arkansas be first, and let's really lean into those spaces. And how do we create a better environment for those business sectors to be able to really succeed? Education, I talked about a good bit already, so I won't worry you too much with that. But you're not going to recruit new business or get a company to expand in our state if we can't provide the workforce. And that was one of the biggest questions we had my first 6 months to year in office when we were asking companies to either expand here in our state or bring new business in, was can you provide the skilled, qualified workforce we need? And at that point, the answer honestly was no, we couldn't. But we're building that, and they see that we've made that a priority and that we're working really closely with our city, our county, and our state governments, as well as with the business sector to help build that workforce. That partnership has made a big difference, and it's, I think, been one of the big things that has set us apart with bringing new business into the state, but also creating a good business environment. We've cut taxes 3 times in the last 2.5 years, putting more money back in people's pockets. We've done that on both the personal and the corporate side by allowing companies and individuals to invest more of their money where they see fit. We're seeing a good return on our investment. We're seeing that that makes a business want to relocate here more, especially when our competitors like Texas and Tennessee, who sit on either side of us, have 0 income tax at all. Now we are more competitive in that space, and it's been a huge thing for us to be able to recruit and grow business that exists here in the state. Getting rid of regulation, just making things easier. Government's job is not meant to complicate business. Our job is to facilitate and frankly make it easier for them to operate. So getting regulations and barriers and red tape out of the way and making it easier for a business to do what they do best. I can't tell a manufacturing company or a retail company or hospitality how to run their business better than they can. What I can do is make it easier for them to operate. And so that's one of the types of things that we've really focused on and spent a lot of time on, and we're seeing great success in that. Not only has Arkansas led the country the last 2 quarters in economic growth, we're also the #1 state in the country that people are moving to. And a lot of people do not realize just the massive amount of inbound migration that is taking place. People are fleeing the coast, and they're looking for a place that they can call home. And more people than anywhere else in the country have done that here in Arkansas over the last year.
And maybe for students, a couple sectors may not be aware of because we're in Southwest Arkansas. Talk about what's going on with steel in the northeast corner, but not too far from here in Camden is the military manufacturing. So maybe just highlight briefly a couple industries we may not be thinking about sitting here, but that are important to our state.
Sure. So as I was saying, one of the things that we identified was where do we have the right to win? Where can we be first? The steel industry was one of those places, northeast Arkansas. For any of you from up there, I'm sure know, but that is a huge and growing industry. There is a massive demand for American-made steel, and that's only growing. And Arkansas now is home to the #1 steel-producing county anywhere in the country. It's not Pennsylvania, it's not Ohio, it's not West Virginia, it's Arkansas. And that is a huge, huge anchor industry that we're able to build a lot on top of. And so we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in northeast Arkansas because of the steel industry. Camden, Arkansas, and the southern part of our state have some of the biggest names that you will find anywhere in aerospace and defense. That's now our #1 export industry is aerospace and defense. In fact, if you're paying attention to a lot of things that are happening around the world right now, there's a pretty good amount of unrest and chaos in certainly different parts of the world. In the Ukraine and Russia war, the vast majority, about 90% of the rockets that are being shot from Ukraine into Russia are being made and manufactured primarily in Camden, Arkansas. Most people don't know that. They don't realize a lot of the things that are being made and produced here in the state. Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Raphael, Raytheon are all companies that have a big presence in South Arkansas. There's a thing called the Iron Dome that protects the country of Israel, and it's a missile defense system, and America has contracted to create their own version of the Iron Dome, and that is actually being made and manufactured primarily in South Arkansas. It's called Sky Hunter, and it is a very sophisticated, one-of-a-kind program. And so those are some of the types of things that we're doing and making here in the state, and a great success story that's only continuing to grow. I think every area of Arkansas has its own kind of unique thing that they have the ability to be first in. And so we're really trying to identify what that is, help build that workforce, help expand those opportunities, and give every part of Arkansas a big success story. So it's not just Northwest Arkansas, but all of Arkansas is moving forward.
Thank you. I'm going to start wrapping up. Maybe 2 questions that relate to family. You're also the first father-daughter combination to be governor. So what's it like to have a father who was the governor of Arkansas as well?
It's actually pretty intimidating. I'm very biased, but I don't think there is any better communicator or frankly better person than my dad. And so to have to follow in his footsteps can be pretty challenging. He set the bar extremely high. In fact, after having a dad who is one of the longest serving governors in our state's history, every small town or city that I go to in the state of Arkansas, people have a memory and a story about my dad. And I was like, your dad's the most amazing human I've ever met. We love your dad. He's a great communicator. You sing fine. And so it can be a little bit intimidating to follow in his footsteps, but I tell him all the time, I think he's the best governor our state's ever had. I think he's one of the best governors that has ever served in our country, but I'm working really hard to take that title away from him. And there's nobody that supports me more and is championing me bigger than my dad to take on that role. And right now, I'm really excited to see him serve in a new capacity. He was nominated, and I think his vote is actually taking place right now in the Senate committee to be confirmed as the next ambassador to Israel. And so just a really remarkable story. But if I can take one more minute, I think the best picture I can paint of what it's like to have a dad who was governor. I lean on him a lot as a resource because he's one of the few people I can pick up the phone who has sat in the seat where I have and made those decisions. And so during the very first legislative session that I ever had, it was pretty challenging. The first couple of weeks I thought I would come in and I would have these great ideas and everybody would support it and we would just push it through because we'd all been saying we wanted to do these same things. It didn't go quite as smoothly as I hoped those first few days. So I called my dad and I was like, Dad, you know how you always talk about how being governor is the best job in the world? You've never done anything that is quite as great and rewarding as being governor. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, when exactly will that start? And my dad kind of laughed and he said, well, sir, to be honest with you, you haven't done anything yet. And I was thinking, Dad, I called you for encouragement, not to like further put me down. And he said, let me explain. He said, at some point here in a few months, you're going to be finished with this session. You will have passed education reform. You will have passed tax cuts. And you're going to be out at a moment when you don't expect it. You're going to be in the grocery store, at one of your kids' baseball games, or a gas station, or somewhere else. And there's going to be a parent that comes up to you and tells you that because of the work you're doing, their child is now in a school where they're thriving instead of struggling. That because of the work that you're doing, they can actually afford the groceries that are in their cart, when before they were really struggling to make ends meet. He said, when you have a moment like that, and you get to see the impact that you have on people's day-to-day life, because that's when you know and you get to understand what's the best job in the world. And you fast forward to where we are now, and it's pretty rare that I get to go to any community, big or small, in Arkansas, and not hear about things that are a little bit better for people in our state. And that's why I do this. It's the best lesson that my dad probably could have taught me in terms of serving in this capacity. And so it's what we strive to, but it can be extremely intimidating to follow somebody with what I think is a pretty remarkable success rate. And I'm hoping to build on the foundation that he laid and ultimately be the best governor that Arkansas has ever had.
Last question, and it's the question that's on everyone's mind. You've come to Tiger Tunes your first 2 years of governor. What keeps bringing you back to Tiger Tunes?
Well, I'm trying to fully convince my 7th grade daughter that she should attend Ouachita. And so when I bring her, if I took her, no offense to any of the professors in the room, but if I take her to a class, I feel like that may not be my best sell, but Tiger Tunes is working pretty well so far. And so that definitely helps. I'm also make no secret about my allegiances. I'm an E, and so I like to cheer the E's on and hopefully see them win here in the next couple of years.
It was fun that first year you came back and we were sitting together, and after Tiger Tunes, I thought you'd want to hustle back to the car and go, and you'd come with your daughter Scarlett and friends, and she just stood out there in front of Cone Bottoms watching all the clubs and kind of mesmerized by what happens after Tiger Tunes. And I do want to say you behave pretty responsibly when you come to Tiger Tunes as well.
He said pretty.
Yeah. Well, we want to wrap this up. We do have a class session beginning, and you've got some other things you have to do. Let me just make a couple closing comments. Before I do that, anything in closing you want to say, Governor?
I would just say, first, thank you again for letting me have the opportunity to come back to campus, but enjoy your time. Certainly work hard, study hard, all those things, but really take a minute to enjoy where you are in this moment and love your experience. Ouachita is one of the best places in the country. And if you allow yourself, it can be pretty life-changing. So don't waste a minute while you're here, and make really good friends, because 20 years from now, those are going to be the people that are probably still in your life. So make good choices, good decisions, but enjoy your time here on campus, because it's a great experience.
Well, I want to thank faculty and staff, and especially students, again, for participating. And I'm going to take a moment and just offer a prayer for our state and decisions. And we've got people across this state who are thinking about whether, so let me do that, then I'll make one closing word. So let's just pause for a moment. Father, we do pray for protection on our state and this part of the country as we watch what's happening. Protect people and lives and homes and property. Give public safety officials and people like the governor wisdom this day as they make decisions and help prepare. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you again, students, faculty, and staff. Thank you, Governor Sanders. Glad to have you back at your alma mater. Join me in thanking our governor, and thank you, students.